Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you to those who have joined us again or any new attendees that have joined. We're really excited to be doing our third part of this five-part appreciation inquiry, all into kindness and how we can sustain it throughout lockdown, but also beyond and into the future. The best part about this is we might not find all the answers, but we're starting the conversation, and at the end of the week we're going to have these action groups working towards and striving towards change that will hopefully have a ripple effect all across Cornwall and hopefully beyond. And the main thing is we're stronger together, and that's the best part about conversations, is knowing and understanding that we're strong on our own, but we're even stronger in groups. And change is more likely if more people are involved and if we feel good about it. And so hopefully we can look at the positives and then apply them elsewhere. And one of the best ways of doing that is dreaming. And that's what this session today is all about. It's about dreaming and not being bound by limitations or what we think we're restricted by. It's not about using your head, it's about leading with your heart and thinking, wow, that would be amazing if we could do this, or if this didn't happen anymore. And that's what is meant to be exciting about this one, and you're meant to leave feeling energized and happy and just amazing and excited to move forward. Kindness was chosen for the theme of this week's, well, Mental Health Awareness Week, the theme of it, because it has this power to unlock our shared humanity, and being kind and good is good for you as well as whoever you're being kind towards, whether that's another person, an individual, a group, a society, or the planet. And so if we have these right conversations, we can start to overcome some of these challenges and almost leave lockdown being stronger than we entered it. And kindness is a social thing, so we need to do it together. We need to have our opinions and insights heard by others, but we need to hear what other people have to say, and it's really exciting to be able to hear what you guys think about kindness, but especially in this one, what you guys dream for kindness to be. So throughout this session, it's all about dreaming, as I said. So after this introduction, I'm going to hand over to Adam, who will be running through some of his dreams, some of the survey findings about our respondents' dreams. And then, similar to yesterday, we will break out into some small groups. We'll just get started about talking about our own dreams for kindness. And then after that, we'll all come back again and do a plenary share. So one person from each group will summarise to the rest of the attendees what you spoke about and your group's biggest dreams. And then after that, we will summarise and do a few questions all together to really do an overview of what this group's biggest dreams are. Just for a summary of yesterday, for anyone who was here, but for anyone who wasn't as well. So yesterday was all about discovering kindness, and we got to look at some great examples of people flexing their kindness muscles, as Emma put it on Monday's session about defining kindness. But it was also about people realising that this time of vulnerability has actually led to openness, and actually it's an amazing time to have these conversations because people want this change and people are open to it. And so we're now working to make this intentional and make this a goal moving forward, that stays, and kindness is key to everything. We also spoke about spontaneity and how it's a key to valuing kindness and appreciating kindness, but also that appreciation and acknowledgement, and kindness being about gratitude. And the last point was about collaboration, where if we want kindness to be key and integral in our society, the best way we can do that is through collaboration, and starting with yourself, then being kind to the people you're collaborating with, and then taking that forward and being kind to everyone else that is around and will benefit from your kindness. And it really is about that ripple effect of a small group, a small individual, and then the power they can have just through being kind and striving to make kindness part of our society in a more sustained and integral way. So I'm going to pass over to Adam now. I hope you all enjoy the session, and he will be going through his own dreams and also the dreams of our survey respondents.
Thank you very much, Katie. And I'm really just smiling because I'm loving what you're saying, and also seeing so many people joining, and we've got a great group today, lots of sign-ups and some new sign-ups, I think, for people who haven't joined us for the last couple of days. So useful to hear that summary. Thanks, Katie. And guess why I'm excited about that is because I suppose one of my dreams is that we can dream some more, and that we find the freedom for the dreams that happen at a community sort of, we've been talking about not just grassroots, but the roots of, I really had a sense of like the roots of a tree, which do gather, talk to other trees. And there's so much latent power, I think, in communities that sometimes gets locked up by funding constraints or measurement and evaluation constraints. It's similar in education, sometimes gets slowed down by measurement. But there's so much power, and some of it's hidden, but I think some of it is very much coming to the surface and becoming more visible. So one of my dreams is absolutely that the power that resides in every single individual gets more connected and more validated, and therefore the potential of that power is more realized. And that's an exciting thing for me. And I think the more we are excited about it, the more likely and more possible it becomes. So really excited to see you all here today. Thank you very much for all joining. Now, as well as talking about my dreams, which I could get very excited about, I'm keen to share some other voices, but most of all, keen to get us cracking as a group interacting, because that's where the magic happens, I think. So in a few moments, I will be handing back to Katie. She's going to get us into our working groups, but I'll explain what's going to happen. But first of all, just a few reflections from me. Some of you might have heard this quote before, but Simon Sinek mentioned in one of his talks about leadership. He says, there's a reason Martin Luther King didn't start his speech with the words, "I have a plan." And as Ben Charnow, the psychiatrist who was on our panel on Monday, said, this is, kindness is absolutely a thing of the heart, not just a thing of the mind. And the word hearts and minds gets used in a leadership context as well, but it's really, it's absolutely our golden opportunity, at the very least today, to work with our hearts and not just our minds. Or maybe just our hearts and not our minds would also be not a bad thing, I think. So we've got a luxury today and an opportunity today to really feel our way into change. And appreciative inquiry is a very well validated, very well researched, very well used global model of change and of big scale system change, which is, I think, by the feedback from our survey and from what you guys have told us, that is what we're doing here. And one of the principles of appreciative inquiry is that change is more likely and more possible when people feel good about it. And this is backed up by my own experience. I know in my own life, it's absolutely true. The best change happens when I'm feeling good. But it's very strongly backed up these days by neuroscience. So we know how the brain works. And we know that when we downregulate the fight or flight systems, the neocortex opens up, and all sorts of possibilities that we might not even consciously have known about. Not only we become aware of them, but they come to fruition, because that's just how human brains work. They get stuff done, and they get the right stuff done, given the right conditions. And there was a psychologist about 100 years ago, Emile Coué, a French fellow who set up an institute with his wife. And one of their principles was that imagination is more powerful than the will. And this is something I really believe and have experienced myself and see in with my hypnotherapy clients, but I really think it's an absolute golden key to some of the change that we're talking about now. And that's why I think it's so important that we do, at least for a few moments this morning, downregulate any fear, downregulate any need to move to action or solve problems or fix stuff or find answers or make stuff conscious. Let's just give ourselves the chance to engage our imagination, to run with that, to get excited and energized about that, and unashamedly allow some of that energy to flow, because from that energy can then come all number of untold good things in the future. And we won't be able to control or predict those things, but I believe that together we can get the ball rolling and some of them will happen. So that's the conditions in which I think we can focus on what's really important, and change can continue. Now, the survey is very clear. It's nice. A lot of the stuff, it's a very clear voice coming through the survey. And I'm just going to share my screen and take you through some of it. Those of you who were with us yesterday will have seen a link to the survey data already. And we'll be giving you this link in a moment, but you guys now have access to a public folder on Google Drive. It's a Google Drive folder with a summary of survey results. This is on the top left. A little sheet of slides, each summarizing each of the five, well, a bit about the respondents and then the 5 stages of appreciative inquiry, and also a long spreadsheet or several worksheets with all of the responses, anonymized. So you can, if you want to, see all of the full level of the detail. So I just wanted to show that to you. This is what it looks like. And if you want to get into the detail a bit more, a good place to start is this nice summary, which Katie's done, of the 5 stages. And this is what our 100 or so respondents have said to our survey. And we're talking about dreaming today. So you can see that the majority of people, a good number of 56% of people, are imagining a world with sustained community. And in fact, community and unity, they're absolutely very much the strongest themes coming from the survey. Maybe no surprise, but that's good to know that community seems to be at the heart of it. That's what we're up to here. 45% or 46% imagine more positive communication. A lot was said about media, social media, and the government, how they're leading, but also local community, how people communicate with their neighbours and with each other. And 30% of people, a third of all of our respondents, talked about smiling and imagining a world where it was normal, and that I don't feel like I'm on another planet if I smile at a stranger. And I think that's just what, and someone I think said, it's one of the simplest things, but it does make the biggest difference. And if there's any example of a small lever that can make a big difference, I think that's a really nice one. And then what was really interesting, we did talk about agency and who will be doing things differently, or who would be, in order for kindness to flourish. And not only did most people tick everything, yes, the government, yes, community groups, yes, individuals and businesses, yes, we all need to do things differently, but quite a lot of people also went into the other box and said, well, everyone. So reinforcing that message is quite strong, that, yeah, we're all in this together, and waiting for someone else to change or the government to be different or something else, so that's not going to, no, we all need to figure this out together. Maybe no easy answers, but that was a clear message that came across to me. So that page is available for you there on the folder, which you'll have access to. I'm just going to close that down, and then we can go into this like a summary level slide here, just pulling out key themes. I mean, this is only my point of view. You guys will have other responses to what people are saying. But we did a word cloud on when we asked people to imagine you wake up in 2021 and kindness has been sustained in the world. What's going on? Community. Everyone's smiling at each other and talking to each other. And equality was a really strong theme as well. Those that are more vulnerable, old or lonely or less able, are treated with respect and enabled to be included in all aspects of life and to lead full lives. They were pretty strong themes. I'll show you a chart in a moment, but they were definitely sort of leading the way in terms of the frequency of mention. And a couple of my favorite quotes. One was, people actually say hello when passing in the street and smile at each other. This is what this person was imagining. And this person said it's the smallest yet biggest act of random kindness we can show to a person. And it's a bit like that butterfly effect. You know, maybe it is the smallest things that make the biggest. It doesn't make logical sense, really. How could the smallest thing be the biggest thing? But it makes sense to me. It's certainly in my heart when I read that. I think, yes, come on. This is, and lots, I think 23 people mentioned smiling. There were quite a lot of mentions of people smiling at each other, laughing, and not being on another planet. What other quotes? Now, this is maybe a bit more provocative for us today, but I felt it was important because someone dared to say that, well, I imagine the whole energy field buzzy, and that actually every day is going to bring and is going to be so good. And even in I'm a pretty positive person, but even in me, that's a slightly risky statement somehow. And I'm thinking, how could that be risky? That sounds great. And how can it be risky to dare to at least imagine that that might be the case? And on a more pragmatic note, but I felt it was important that local volunteering models, which have been so successful, Emma Rose was here with us on Monday from Volunteer Cornwall, and there's been so much success, which I think would be great to sustain. And I thought the word intergenerational was really interesting as well, because for me, and it's part of this group as well, just cross-fertilizing different points of view and different experiences in life, whether it's from different ages or different sectors, is important, because that stops us getting sort of into groupthink and getting locked into certain ways of thinking about the world. So that cross-fertilization for me is really important to allow kindness to be contagious. I think we need different points of view in our social and professional circles. So that was some summary level stuff. Now, you guys can go in and add into these files if you want to, but I know there's a lot to take in, so I'm not expecting citizen science to take off in a heartbeat. But at the very least, you've got access to these things. You own this data as much as we do. But I'm just going to close that down for the moment and go back here. And by clicking on this theme analysis here, I'm going to open this document here, which you can see. I'm nearly done, by the way. I'm conscious I've been talking for a while, but we're going to move on into a group exercise in a moment or two. But you can see in the different worksheets here, we've got the 5 stages of design, define, discover, dream. There's actually 2 worksheets to dream today, and then design and do. And in here, you can see all of the responses. So all of people's text responses to the questions that we've asked. And we've been through every one of these responses and just highlighted the frequency of them. So you can see in the Imagine one, this is Imagine 2021 as you'd like it to be. I've already spoken about how community and communication and smiling and equality were significantly the strongest themes. You can see how much community was mentioned in compared to other themes. But then we moved on to a second question, which interestingly I felt was quite a similar question, but what 3 wishes do you have for kindness in the future? Just engages, I suppose, a different part of the brain. And actually the answers were quite different. So here, by far, the most frequent response was about, well, it's every day. It should be normal. It should be heart and soul and just what we always do. Lots of different phrases referring to it's just a regular thing that everyone does and everyone's involved. So that sort of everyday nature was very much in people's wishes. And then various aspects of government, not just the government leading differently, but actually local government being different and us all having a say. So there's various themes in the system there as well. And the planet and nature was mentioned. I think it was mentioned once in the previous question, but something like 14 or 13 times in this one. No, less, maybe 8 for that one. But in summary, I think what people seem to be describing, and I don't want to put people's words in anyone's mouths, we can figure this out. But for me, I suppose, this is big stuff we're talking about. We want everyone to be doing things differently every day, but in small ways that make a big difference. I think what we're talking about here is big system change, but maybe not in the way in which big system change has been done in the past, you know, and we are striving maybe for a more democratic method and mode, which is what we're doing here. That's back to my dreams. You will have your own views on that, but I will stop sharing this now and we'll give you guys the link to that folder. But actually, sorry, there's one more thing I wanted to share. Let me just go back to this. So, am I still sharing this, or have I stopped? Stopped. There we go. So hopefully you can all see this page now. So we've got a good half an hour now. We're going to Katie's going to break us into breakout groups of 4 or 5 people, and you may or may not know people, so you can take a few minutes to introduce each other, but try and keep that to maybe the first 5 minutes if you can. So keep that fairly concise, because I want to move on to really digest what are your dreams. If you imagine waking up in a year's time and kindness has been sustained or even flourished further in society, how would you know? What would you notice about you? And you could also ask each other, what are your 3 wishes? But your task as a group is to make sure that everyone in your group throughout that conversation in some way moves up this scale, because kindness and well-being is contagious. Your job as self-facilitating groups is to help each other feel energized about those questions and to start to imagine ourselves into an even more positive future. And you can do that with imagining the future and asking each other, well, what are your wishes for the future? What I would caution against is getting into problem solving. We might be tempted to talk about what's going to be different or what's not working at the moment or how things need to change. Just be aware if you're getting into the more conscious processing part of your brain and actually out of your heart. And try and keep yourselves as a group engaged with your heart. If people are smiling, and as I think it was the conductor and sort of leadership guru, Ben Zander, he's an orchestral conductor, but he says for leadership, if their eyes are shining, you know it's working. So in your groups, if you can see if they're smiling and their eyes are shining, you're doing a good job. If the energy's going low, maybe you're not asking the right questions or talking about the right thing. Try and shift the energy. So that's your challenge for the next half an hour. Energize your group. And then I'd like to hear for a couple of minutes from each group, maybe one spokesperson, or it could be more of you, what you've been talking about in such a way that you then energize the rest of this whole group. So in plenary, if you could then share and energize the rest of us. That is your task. And I think that's it. I will put the link to the data in the chat. I'll stop sharing this, but you can access this because it's in the dream slides in the folder you'll have access to if you want to. I'll stop sharing and just check, has that made sense? Or does anyone want to raise a hand or wave and ask any questions before we start?